Hello, welcome. Today, something new. Pathfinder playtest. Really looking forward to this. I've read through the book. I've had one session of it as the GM. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my findings, some of the things that I like about it. Just some things that, not sure whether I like it or not, but we'll figure that out. Now, in this book, fantastic book. Now, just to let you know, I picked up this, and I also picked up the Doomsday Dawn, the first adventure. Both, I like both of them so far. I think this is fairly well written. A little bit to be desired when it comes to the intro to the adventure itself. It just kind of assumes like everyone knows this one woman and let's get right into it. So as a GM, you kind of have to do a little bit of creating there yourself. But anyways, let's get into the core. Okay. Now just a little bit of history on myself when it comes to role-playing games. I started off with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Then I got into second edition Dungeons and Dragons, mostly like Forgotten Realms. Then with my one friend, he had the red box, like basic D&D, and so I played a few adventures with that, like a little campaign, and then I brought him over to second edition. Created my own world in second edition. DM'd that for 20 years, I want to say, with generally the same group of people. We had some people come in, some people come out, but it was generally the same group. And then I got into third edition, then 3.5. 3.5 was a great a great fix to some of the problems third edition had, but I fell in love with 3.5. Now Pathfinder 3.75, it once again is an improvement on the 3.5. It still has that classic RPG feel. That open D20 system that they created was fantastic. I did like the Star Wars D20. Well, back in the day, I did Star Wars D6. I did some Robotech, a little bit of Vampire the Masquerade with the werewolf mixed in there. But mostly my role-playing career has been with Dungeons and Dragons. Mostly with TSR and then over to Wizards of the Coast. And then, like I've had the pleasure of having Ed Greenwood as my DM, which was fantastic. I must say that this new Pathfinder though, I'm liking it. The ease. I did a little switch into playing like Massive Darkness and Zombicide and things like that because I really didn't have time to sit down and flesh out the adventures the way that I usually like to when it comes to D&D and other role-playing games that I've played. So I switched over to that, which is more or less a board game, right? You could throw some role-playing elements into it, but at its core, it's a board game. So I was thinking about getting into 5th edition, and then I went to my local hobby store, Dueling Grounds, here in Peterborough, and they'd literally just put this on the shelf half hour beforehand. So I was like, okay. As you can see, now you can get this as a free PDF. Go to Pazio.com and you can get all this, including the bestiary and everything else, the free PDF. If you were to print it off in Canadian, anyways, it would cost you about $47, and that's before they do the binding. Or you could just, which I know PDFs are great, but I really do like just having a physical copy in my hand. This is $52.95 plus tax Canadian. So, and then you can also buy the hardcover, which is $79, I think, or $78, close to $80. Anyways, let's get into this as to some of the things that I really do like. Okay, now character creation. You can do the roll your d6 like which is what I ended up doing with my party, or you can do the what is the suggested, whereas all your stats start at 10. Now, with your ability scores and everything, it runs through at page 18 if you're following along. Ability scores goes through each what your abilities are. Now, if you're familiar with role-playing games, you know, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, you know, all about those. Those stay the same. It stays the same as the regular D20 system where at a 9 to, or sorry, at a 10, 11, there's no bonus. 12, 13 plus 1, 14, 15 plus 2, 16, 17 plus 3, 18, 19 plus 4, so on and so forth, and then reverse that for your negatives. Every two numbers, you get another -1. So it's stayed the same that way. But what this suggests is that all stats start at 10, and then depending on your ancestry, which is what they changed race to call it ancestry, to more reflect both the times, politically correctness and things as such, but also to reflect more of your ancestry is what kind of brings about the kind of person that you are, not so much your race. So I can see how that works. And then like half elf and half orc are not there. You have to use the human ancestry type and branch off from there. But anyways, so depending on your ancestry and depending on your class, you will get bonuses and flaws to your abilities. So like a rogue, for instance, dexterity being its main attribute, you'll get a +2 to dexterity. So you start at 10, that'll bring it to a 12. Then if you're an elf, there's another +2, so that brings it to a 14. And then there's usually 2 ability boosts, and then one that's just a free, and you pick whichever one you want. Now, saying that does make for some pretty rounded characters, and it does make so that your whole party is pretty even and pretty fair. One person doesn't have like a bunch of, 7s and 12s, and their highest stat being 14, and the other guy's got like 2 18s, 17 and 2 16s, and 5. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure if you've played role-playing games, you've had that before, where maybe your character or one of your party has had like really bad stats, and they sometimes don't even want to play that character because of it, because you're all supposed to be heroes, right? Now, my group, we opted to do the roll because that's what we've done a long time. But what I did was you roll 4d6, drop the lowest, do that 6 times, and that creates a character, and now do that 3 times and pick which row of stats that you want to use. And it worked out pretty good. Pretty much the entire party has like one stat that's around an 8 or a 9, but they also have at least one stat that's like a 17 or 18. And when you do the roll method, you have to subtract 1 free ability boost per either for both your class and your ancestry. So you don't get as many boosts, but most of your stats are going to be above 12 or above 10, because your average roll is a 12, right? So that's the difference between the two of them. Personally, I'll probably stick with the rolling, but you never know. I did do point system in 3.5 a while back just to kind of keep everything fair as well. But okay, another thing that I'm really liking about this is the 3 actions. So every turn when you're in encounter mode, because there's 3 different modes. Exploration mode, which is basically just like when you're walking through the dungeon, walking through the town, walking through the woods. Nothing's really going on. You're not in initiative order. Well, there could be lots going on, but you're not in initiative order. You're just kind of perusing around the land or dungeon or whatever. And then as soon as that like roll initiative comes up, then that switches to encounter mode. And in encounter mode, you get 3 actions. I love this. Okay, I've heard some complaints, oh, well, at first level you get 3 attacks and things, but really, the way that they've done the critical success and critical failure, which I'll get into, it really makes you think of to what actions you want to take, because movement is one action. Switching from one hand to 2 hands on a weapon is an action. Taking your shield from just being like a passive shield that you're holding to raising it up in defense, that is also an action. And the only way to gain the AC bonus from your shield is to take that action. Now, you also have a reaction. So, for example, attacks of opportunities, which are fighters only, can be done when somebody does a manipulate ability. All the abilities have names. Like manipulating is like drinking a potion, operating a magical item. Basically, when you take your hands and you're doing something with your hands other than just playing out attacking, is manipulating. Look through the the handbook there, the rule book for exact examples. Once again, I have read through it, but it's more being like a quick skim and then reading specific rules as my players or myself have wondered. But your first attack in the 3 actions, you can take 3 attacks, but your first attack is at par, whatever your bonuses are. Then your second attack is at -5, and your third attack is at -10. Now, that can get reduced by 1 if you're using a finesse weapon. And then if you are a ranger and you have a chosen foe and whatnot, which you just hunt one enemy, not a whole race or whole ancestry, then that can be reduced again. So the best you can get, as far as what I can tell, unless there's a feat that I haven't read yet, or skill or something, is first attack at par, second attack at -3, third attack at -6. But that's if you're a ranger with a finesse weapon and it's against your foe that you've targeted to be what you're hunting. Now, when it comes to critical successes and critical fails, here's where that 3 action really makes you think. Because a natural 20 is a critical success, which you do not have to confirm anymore. A natural 1 is a critical failure, which again, you don't confirm. But if you succeed on the DC of anything, skills or an attack or a saving throw, if you succeed by 10 or more, that is also a critical success. But if you fail by 10 or more, that is also a critical fail. So if you think about it, at low levels, when you're going to make that third attack and you are at -10 to hit, and let's say the thing has a modest AC of like 12 because it's first level adventure, and you're -10 to hit. First level guy, you've got maybe your strength or your dexterity, depending on what kind of weapon it is, bonus, plus your first level, plus whatever your proficiency is in that weapon. So you might be looking at a +4 to hit, +5 to hit, because you have a decent strength or dexterity. There's still a good chance you're going to get that. I mean, it's not a great chance, but there's still that chance it's going to be minus. And then a lot of things have listed in them on a critical success or critical failure, something that happens as well. And even if it doesn't, a creative GM like myself, I love to, for example, I love to show what happens. For example, had our rogue, a goblin rogue, fire a crossbow. He critically failed, so I made his bolts in his case spill out all over the floor where he was. So he literally couldn't move from that spot if he wanted to pick up and shoot, or grab a handful and run with them. But it adds to it. Same with when there was like a stray shot when he was shooting past somebody, and again critical fail, and then I made him roll to see if it would hit the other player, the sorcerer, in the back of the head, and ended up just getting caught in his cloak in the hood, and we had a good laugh at that. But it just adds so much more to the game. Or as a fighter, and you have a shield, like, would you rather get that third attack at -10, or would you rather raise that shield, and get +1, +2 to your AC, as well as then if you have your reaction, you can deflect. Which brings me on to shields. Shields are fantastic. I in this edition, I love shields. Not only do you have to bring them up, but if you have your reaction left, when somebody hits you, you can then deflect the blow, which is really a damage reduction equal to the hardness of the shield. But then the shield takes damage, and it can get bent and then broken. And most have like 2. We'll think of them like not hit points, but 2 bend counters. I forget the exact term for it. But the first bent, okay, now it's damaged. Second, it's broken, right? And so now like your repair skills and spells, mending and stuff like that, they're much more valuable. And speaking of spells, cantrips. Cantrips for wizards and sorcerers are now far more powerful. Our sorcerer, for example, has telekinetic. Oh, now I'm going to forget the name of it. Basically, what it does is he can. Let me see here. Telekinetic projectile. He can take 1 loose, unattended object within 30 feet of him and shoot it at a foe within 30 feet, doing 1d10 damage for a cantrip. And now cantrips can just continuously be used. Just over and over again, at will. Think about that while I have this tasty beverage. Good stuff. So no longer do you have this like 15-minute day, as it's called, where the wizards come in, they go Nova, they blow off all their spells, and then they go, okay, everyone, let's just go camp so I can get all my spells back. Doesn't happen that way. Same with a cleric. A cleric now has 3 plus their charisma modifier, I believe it is, healing spells, like positive channeling that they can do, and in multiple ways. They can remember that 3 action thing I was talking about? 1 action, they can touch somebody or themselves to heal. 2 actions, they can do it like a ranged heal, which is fantastic. Or 3 actions, they can blow it off, and it does like a radius. It doesn't heal as much on the radius. It only heals their like ability modifier, I believe is what it is. Or it heals a smaller amount in a radius around, but it also damages all undead in that area. So it's great. Once again, making it so the cleric doesn't just have to walk around and be the party's band-aid. You know, like how many times have you played a cleric or somebody in your party's played a cleric? It's a great utility character, and some people love that. They love being the medic. They love helping out. They love casting the buff spells. But if that all has to be reserved for healing for your party, it can get a little bit boring because but now in this edition as well, your attack modifiers and your proficiencies with things have been done different. So the cleric has a good chance of hitting just as much as the fighter does, because it's your level plus whatever you're using, whether it's a finesse or whether it's a strength-based weapon, right? So your dexterity or strength-based weapon. So your level plus, say, your strength modifier, plus your proficiency with that weapon, plus the level of whether that weapon is like a standard weapon or whether it's a expertly crafted weapon, kind of like masterwork, or it's a master weapon or a legendary weapon, which all adds to the plus. So that continues to go up. And speaking of how your level affects your proficiencies, the one thing that I have now we're going to talk about something that I have a little bit of concern with, and I'm not sure how I like it. I'm remaining open-minded because I want to see where this goes. This could end up being one of the best role-playing systems ever, or I might go back to 3.5 / Pathfinder 3.75. But I'm willing to give it the year. I mean, I've been playing role-playing games long enough. I'm willing to give it the year and see what changes they make, and they're open to the community. That's why it's a playtest. Fill out the surveys, and make sure if you're playing this that you do get back to them and you tell them what you think of it. But your level affects so many things. Your level is added to your saving throws. Your level is added to your rolls to hit. Your level is added to your armor class, your skills. It's so many things. So it's now called like how proficient you are in something, and your proficiency is whether you are trained, expert, master, or legendary. Those are all +1 each. Plus your level, plus the corresponding ability modifier. That's pretty good. So as you go up in level, everything goes up. So even though some people are saying like wizards, their spells are less powerful, but they could still hit somebody pretty hard two-handed with that quarterstaff doing a D8 damage, because two-handed is a D8, or single-handed D4. But plus their strength and their rolls to hit are almost as good as a fighter's. So that I can see. And then I want to talk about that attack of opportunity thing again. Now, when we played our first game, everyone was just assuming, like, moving out of threatened squares, moving through threatened squares, casting a spell when you're in a threatened square, which is adjacent to an opponent, that these attack of opportunities were going to happen. And the one player in our group, he was like, I haven't found that anywhere except for the fighter. So we all did some research into it, and we found that, yeah, the fighter has it at first level as an ability, not a feat, an ability. The paladin gains something similar at 6th level. And the barbarian has something similar to the like the witch hunter, I think it's called, at 6th level as well, where he can attack a spellcaster who's casting a spell in an adjacent square. So no more do you have like a rogue and a fighter flanking a mage, and that mage tries to cast a spell and the rogue gets, sneak attack damage on it. Doesn't happen. Sneak attack still happens when you're flanking, or when they're flat-footed, or they have the ability when at the start, before your enemy has reacted, that they're considered flat-footed for that attack. And then next, we're going to go on to resonance points. I think there's what they're called, resonance. Basically, you have your charisma modifier plus your level is how many times you can use a magical item on any given day. It refreshes every day. But that includes drinking a potion. So just think about that. Your first level. You have a -1 to your charisma because it's your dump stat. So that sets you at 0. That means you can drink 0 potions a day. You can activate 0 magical items per day. Not sure how I feel about this. However, it'll stop people from just using that charisma as their dump stat when it comes to fighters, because sometimes a fighter needs to drink that potion. Sometimes a fighter needs to activate that magic item. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to see how that one goes. Let me know what you think about those points in the comments down below. Another thing, cost of items in this game seems to be more realistic. Everything's done in like silver points. Now silver coins as opposed to like gold and things as such. So now when somebody makes 20 silver in a week, it's more like for the commoner, 5 silver. Like it's more scaled to what they could actually buy. But anyways, I'm loving this so far. Tomorrow we're going to get into our second session and hopefully finish off the very first adventure in the Doomsday Dawn, because we were kind of learning as we were playing. But the Lost Star, it's once you get into the adventure, I love how it's written. I don't like in this how the start of the adventure really doesn't like give you this paragraph to read your players to really inspire them to go in. As a GM, you kind of have to do that yourself. And it doesn't do a lot to tie in the adventures. Each adventure, you're kind of making a new group to play with. There's like 3 adventures that you take that initial party through. And it scales up. But it's really, I think, so that you can... once again, it's a play test. Just to see how you like it. And to get back to them as to how the adventure plays out. But anyways, pick these up. If you're into role-playing games, give them a try. Contact them on their website. Fill out the surveys. Let's make this a great game. If there's something you don't like about it, that's fine. Let them know that, hey, I think that this should get changed. Maybe even come up with a suggestion for them. That's what this is all about, guys. It's playtest. So let's dive into it. Let's have some fun. Once again, like, subscribe. Just have fun with it.